Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to use constants, field variables, the math class, and how to use the debugger to easily navigate your code. Let's get to it. Okay, so once again we have just a simple GUI, a text box, a button and a label. Fine-tuning your GUI, I've made this text box a bit larger so the user is more comfortable and there's no text inside of it. Let's go to the font. You can see my font is 15. I can bold the text as well. You can change your font name to any of these, even make it italic. So let's go to our result. I've already changed the size to 12. Let's make, okay, let's choose that one. Let's make it bold. Okay, so we can underline it as well and strike it out or italic. And the button is as well. I just changed the size, and then you can of course drag it like you want to size it, and you can change your fore color. Let's change it to red. Okay, so let's click on the go button and we have our method. So first of all I want to show you constants. So constants you always declare, or not always, but usually you declare it publicly. And where we do that is just const. Okay, so like you declare your integers and your double, the same with a constant value. A constant you declare with const, and then the data type is int, and then always a constant name. It's good programming skills, I want to say. If a constant is always capital. When you're using constants in your code, always you make everything capital letters. The name of the variable, the constant variable, always capital. So let's make this one tax per se. Tax will actually be a double in this case. Double tax, and then you give it a value of 0.5, let's say. So the reason for constant is because this value is never going to change. Not never, but it's not going to change in your code. So if you have 5 methods that uses the tax with 0.15, and let's say the tax increased to 0.20, now you need to go to all 5 of your methods and change the tax value from 0.15 to 0.20. Instead of using a constant double tax everywhere in your 5 methods, and the tax someday changes, you can only change it at one place, and you don't need to go to all 5 of your methods everywhere where you declare the tax variable and change it. Only need to change it at one place. Remember, it's always capital letters when naming constants. Okay, the next I want to show you is, you will probably see I've not declared this inside of the method, but I've declared it inside of my class. Okay, so you can declare 2 types, well 3 types if you count the constant, 2 types of variables in your class known as field variables, and you have your private variable and your public variable. So a private variable fields, it's private fields actually, not the variable. So my private fields looks like, you say your private, let's make it string is input. It's an open string, and then you have your public variable. Let's make my public variable public int this one equals 500. Okay, so what's the difference between private and public? Well, as you are going further into this module, you are going to create more forms and more classes. So what a private variable does, it keeps this string variable only for this form 1 class. Okay, so none of the classes outside of this class, of the form 1 class, can use the private variable because it's private only to this form 1 class. But now let's say you have created a second form with a second class, and you would like to use this one int variable in multiple classes. That's when you declare it publicly. This means that any class outside of the form 1 class can access this variable and use the value inside of the variable, but it will not be able to use this s input field because it's declared privately. Okay, public, anyone can access it. Private, only this class where you have declared it can access it. Okay, so let's move on to our button Go. Let me just show you what I want to do. So we're going to play around a bit with the math class. So I'm going to input a number here as text, yes, and the Go button, and then we will make some calculations in the result. But we're going to use the math class. Okay, so first of all, what is the math class? Well, the math class lets you use math variables as if you were on a calculator, like square root, like round, like exponential, all those values. It's a really handy class, and it makes life so much easier when programming in C#. So let's go and declare a variable int iValue. Let's just give it 0 for now. Okay, and now actually let's give it, we're going to need to pass, let's give it the value of the text box. No, I have not renamed my text box, not good programming. txt input. What's my label? My label I have renamed to label result. Okay, so txt input text, going to pass it, and let's make, I'm going to make a double result variable, and let's say I want no, it's going to be, now I need to invoke the math class, so it's a capital MATH for math, and when I click the period or the point button on my keyboard, you can see all of the methods that the math class gives you to play around with. Okay, so you have your floor, your exponential, you have your log functions, your max, your min, you can even call a pi, and your round, your square root, your round, your power function, your absolute value, and all of those nice things. So let's play around a bit. What do we want to do? Okay, let's get the square root of whatever I put in the text box. Square root of iValue. You can see the method wants a double. Integer value falls inside of a double parameter, so that's fine. And now let's display it in the result. And let's run it. Oh my word. Cannot implicitly convert type double to string. Okay, so what's the problem? It's saying text box wants a string, but I've just given it a double value. Very easy to fix. You put it to string. What's the square root of 25? Oh, apparently it's 5. Okay. That's the square root function. What's the square root of 110? What's the square root of 25.5? Oh my word. Input string was not in the correct format. Okay. So remember, you can only use square root with integer values. You can't have decimal values and expect the string to be outputted. Okay, it's not, doesn't work like that. That's a math rule. It's not a C# rule. That is a math rule. Okay, let's see what else can we do with math. I've just pressed Control space to invoke IntelliSense so I can see all of the methods it gives. Okay, we could say pow. Okay, pow. It needs two parameters. It needs a double x and a double y. And what does it do? It returns a specified number raised to the specified power. So it's going to take x and raise it to the double y. So let's go iValue, raise it with 2. So if my math is correct, 5 to the power of 2 is 25. Okay, so that's your 3 to the power of 2 is 9. Okay, very simple. So we can go through a lot of the math methods, but one I want to show you in particular. Let's create a okay, now well, let's make this iValue a double, and let's just call it value. Math.round. This is a very useful function, like you will see now. Let's take a value, and let's see what will be the output. 25.6. Oh, that was my logical error. Input string was once again not in the correct format. What did I do wrong? When I changed the I value to a double, but I have not changed the pass to a double. Okay, it's not going to work. Let's go to double. 25.6, 26, because it rounds up. Now another useful function with the round, I'm invoking my IntelliSense. You can see the overloaded methods. Let's go down, down. You see there's now two parameters. So I have a decimal and an integer decimals. Decimal D and the integer decimals. So it says a decimal, you can put a double as well, it will work as fine. So it tells you to put in a decimal value and then how much do you want it to be rounded off. To how many decimals do you want it to be rounded off. Okay, so let's go value, and I want it to be rounded, to be rounded to 3 decimals. Okay, let's see what happens. 123. Alright, so 123.562. Let's make that one as a 9. So you can see I've specified I want 3 decimals, so 9, it rounds up to 3. So that's a neat little rounding trick you can use a lot. So now let's use some of the public fields we have declared. So public int. So I can use this public int in any method that I've declared in this class. Okay, so instead of value, let's go here and replace value with this one. And it's not okay. Let's not round. Let's play with another math function. Let's see. Absolute. Let's make it floor. Let's make it floor, and I want this one. So you will see I didn't get an error. Oh, I did get an error. Okay, let's not use floor. Let's go with power. Power needs another parameter. I want a power of 5. Okay, so you will see this one is not an error because it's already declared. But you will see if I didn't give it a beginning value, if I just declare it like this, it's going to give me an error and say it's not initialized. It's 0. Okay, so the value is null. Okay, so the value was null and it just couldn't power it, so it just returned a 0. So not necessarily an error. Okay, that's good. It's good we are getting these errors out of the way, even though we didn't get an error. I thought this was going to return an error, but it didn't, but it's fine. We always learn something new. So yeah, like I said, if you already declared it private or publicly, you can use sinput here as well. Let's make this sinput plus the result, and let's make the input value here result. And we didn't get an error because it's already been declared privately, so only this class can use this variable. Oh, okay. Once again, not in the correct format. It's because I didn't input something in my text box. Oh, and that's 500 to the power of 5. And result is there as well. Okay, so now I want to show you how the debugger works. So I'm actually glad that error happened. Now I'm going to cut this and let's paste it in the middle. So you saw that error that just came up when I didn't input something in the text box. So now let's go and track it with the debugger. You see this gray area on the left hand side. If you click on anything on the line, is going to show the debugger it needs to stop there, and we're going to loop through it. So I've now created an exception line, a debugger line that shows us that then the debugger will know once it gets to that line it needs to stop, and we will loop through automatically. So we're gonna go debug. You can or press F5 and you say start debugging. So you're going to go as far you're going to what do I want to say? You're going to use the GUI up until the point where this red line is until your broken line. So let's press go. You can see I have not yet an error because it didn't move farther than this line. You can see this green arrow, it tells you we're in this line right now, and if you go to the top here, you can see you can step into it. If you have a function, you can step over it, or you can step out of it. Generally we will use step over. So when you step over it, no, there's the exception now. Input string was not in the correct format because there was no input value. Okay, so let's break, remove this line, and we make a break in this method button go. So we will only be redirected to the debugger window once the button go on click event is invoked. So let's start. 1, 2, 3, now go. So as soon as I pressed go, it went into debug mode, and now we can loop through all the methods and the values inside the method to look at our code more closely. So I'm going to use F10, step over. First line, double result equals math.pow, this one to the power of 5. And you can see here in our watch window, we have our E, our result, our sender, this and this one. Okay, there's the sender and E, don't worry about them. We are interested in result and this one. So you can already see this one as a value, but result doesn't, because this one has already been declared publicly at the top. Okay, so now we are on line 38, but this line has not yet executed. We are just on the line. So when I step over it, it just executed. And now we can see that result has changed from 0 to this massive number, because remember I'm powering 500 to the power of 5. So as soon as I stepped over that line, the line executed, and the result changed from null to this massive number. And we can still see this one is 500, and we can see the txt input text that was in our text box is 123. And where's my value? Apparently my value is 0, but that's the one. Yeah. So now we are on line 40, and now value is still 0, as you can see in the watch window, because this line is not yet executed. It will execute once we press F10 or step over it. Alright, so line 40 is just executed. Value is now 123. It's now the text box value. Okay, now we are on line 43. Line 43 has not yet executed. Let's step over it. It has executed, and we can see we're on the last line in our method, and we can just step over it again. The form will pop up, and there you can see all the results. Okay, so that's the debugger for you. It's really handy when you're working with loops, especially loops. So if you have a for loop that's looping 100 of times, and for some reason it only loops 5 times, and you can check, but why doesn't it loop 100 times? That the debugger and the watch functions is very helpful for that situations. Okay, so that's all I wanted to show you guys. Good luck.